Hey friends, welcome to Flight Test. I'm Josh. Today we're going to be showing you how to build the FT EZ Orbit. Now the EZ Orbit is part of our Space Flight EZ series, which is not only going to teach you about different wing configurations, but also take a lot of the spirit of some of those classic sci-fi movies we had and put them into real life. The really cool thing about these planes is they can all be flown as a free flight model, or you can add our EZ Pack, which is included with our curriculum and our kit, and make this RC. The really cool thing about the FT EZ Orbit is it actually explores all the cool features around an annular wing. And the annular wing is where the wing is circular, and it has a lot of really cool benefits and unique flight characteristics. We're going to be showing you how to build this and also how to make it fly well. So the first thing we're going to be doing is we're going to be building our airframe, showing you how to get your center of gravity and how to fly it as a free flight glider. Then afterwards, we're going to put electronics on this and go outside and have some fun flying it around. For this build, you're going to need some tape, some hot glue, and possibly a razor blade. Let's go ahead and get our materials in order and we'll get started. So the first thing we're going to be doing is locating all the pieces for our FT EZ Orbit from our Spaceflight EZ Pack. Let's go ahead and pop out our pieces and then we'll go ahead and identify them. Now that we have all of our pieces popped out, let's go ahead and identify each one of them so you'll know what I'm talking about when we put it together. We have the main body of our FT EZ Orbit, we have the vertical portion of our fuselage and the two fuselage doublers, and we also have both sides of our annular wing. Both these sides are going to be exactly the same. Let's go ahead and put our attention towards the main body of our FT EZ Orbit. We can put the other pieces aside for now. All the pieces from this design are going to need to have the paper peeled. This is going to give us a much lighter weight for the orbit to fly and a lot more power. But before we do that, in the kit form, we're going to have our main body here in a bifold piece. This is the way it was kitted. We want to make this one solid piece, so we're going to take our hot glue gun and we're going to put a bead of glue right down on both sides and lay it flat on the table. Feel free to take a scrap piece of foam board and smear it smooth. Let this dry for about a minute. After the seam is fully dried, go ahead and take your time and peel off all the paper on the top of our body. This should peel off fairly easy, just a nice steady pull. We'll peel the wingtips. And we're going to flip this over 180 degrees. Same process on the other side. Once we peel the paper from both sides, you're going to notice it's going to lay perfectly flat on the table here. Now with the top side facing up, which is going to be the side with the two score lines facing towards us, we're going to go and flip this over 180 degrees so it's now down against the table. We're going to flip over the body and we're going to put two seams of tape right over where that crease line is going to be. This is going to give us a lot of extra strength for where the wingtips are going to bend and also durability. I like using 2-inch tape. It's nice and light but very strong. I'm just going to line this up right along this edge here. Smooth it down. Same process on the other side. We can come back with a razor blade later and cut off the excess. Just right there. There we go. Then I'm going to carefully flip this over here. Actually, taped it to the table. Then I'm just going to go ahead and take my razor blade, carefully trim off any excess that I may have. Alrighty. We now have tape on the bottom here. We're going to place that with the score cuts facing back up towards us again. Our next step is to take the tip of a ballpoint pen or a pencil or even your fingernail, and we're just going to lightly crush down where both wingtips need to go up. Don't make this too wide open here. We want to make this just enough to where the wings will kind of easily deflect up, just like you see here, without bending the center part of the body. To help us with the proper angle of our dihedral, we have a little tiny wing gauge right here that we're going to slide in. Once you're happy with the spacing, we're going to take a piece of tape. What we'll do here is we'll just start on one side, just tape this down, and hold that flat up against the table, crease it in. There we go. You can notice when you pull this out, it holds its shape perfectly. We don't need to put any hot glue on this, and it's nice and strong. Same process on the other side. You can use your fingernail, or you can use a ballpoint pen. I'm just gonna kind of lift this up, make sure it has plenty of angle there. We'll slide our little dihedral gauge in, let it rest against the table. Once again, I like to press down on the table here, let it roll right over to the wingtip, just like that. So dihedral is really important in a lot of different airplanes. What dihedral does is it gives the plane the ability to stabilize properly. When a plane has dihedral and it banks one way or the other, the wing that drops is actually going to generate more lift than the wing that's raised, and it's going to level itself out. Now it's really important with planes like this, whether they're free flight or whether they're RC, to have a little bit of dihedral in them, because that's going to give it a nice self-stabilizing tendency that's going to make it very easy and enjoyable to fly. Alright, and I'm just going to go ahead and use the razor blade or a pair of scissors to cut off the excess tape on the back, and I can even fold over the front if I want to. Let's go ahead and put the main body aside here and grab the 3 pieces needed for our center fuselage. So we have 3 pieces for our main center fuselage. We're going to have our main center section, and you're going to notice an etched out spot for where the control board is going to go. I'd like you to locate the doubler here with the notch here, and that's going to go on the same side as you see here. To the other side, you're going to notice a doubler that does not have that square cut box. That's going to go on the side that's opposite of the etch lines. Once you have this laid out, let's go ahead and peel the paper just like we did before. Our next step will be to just a quick test fit to make sure everything lines up. When you line up your doubler, make sure you start out by lining up where your control board is going to go, and then the other 2 holes are going to line up for where your battery lead goes through, and then also for your battery slot itself. Once you're happy with how everything lines up, we're going to go ahead and put some glue right on our doubler. Go all around here. Don't have to put too much. Flip it over. Once I have the glue down, I like to just put nice even pressure right up against the table and let it thoroughly dry. And we'll do the exact same process on the other side. Quick test fit, line up the 3 holes. We're going to go ahead and put some glue right on our doubler. Go all around here, don't have to put too much. Flip it over. Once I have the glue down, I like to just put nice even pressure right up against the table and let it thoroughly dry. For this model build, we're actually using our own FT300 hot glue gun. The thing I like about this hot glue gun is it actually has the ability to select your temperature. Notice I'm turning the temperature down below medium, and that's going to give us glue that still takes a little while to dry, but at the same time, it's not so hot that it melts the foam or burns your hands easily. Now that we have the center section of our fuselage done, let's go ahead and install it onto the orbit's body. All we simply need to do is line up the front tab and slide it all the way back until the rear tab lines up with the back of the body of the orbit. Once everything is lined up, we're going to take a bead of hot glue on each side from the opening all the way to the nose. And then we'll let it dry. Same process on the other side. Make sure that both sides of the orbit's body are lined up with each other. Once we have the top of the orbit's body glued, let's go ahead and put a thin little bead of glue on both sides of the rear. We're going to hold this in place for about a minute until it's fully dry. And lastly, we'll put 2 thin small beads of glue on both sides of the bottom of the front. I'm just going to use my little wing gauge here, scrape off any excess. We're going to hold this in place for about a minute until it's fully dry. We now have the main body of our orbit joined to our fuselage. Let's go ahead and peel the paper off of the elevator here on the rear, and then we'll join that to the back of the body as well. Simply remove the paper, and what I like to do is apply a simple piece of tape to the very back here. Press it in place just like that. Tape it down. Use a pair of scissors if you want. Simply remove any excess. You're going to notice that the elevator of the orbit is just slightly kicked up. That's because we want a slightly positive angle of attack for the orbit to fly properly. All we simply need to do is fold this over 180 degrees. We'll put a tiny little drop of glue right here on this tab, and then we'll fold it down. This is going to give you a really great starting point for the proper angle here. You can always bend this up slightly or bend this down slightly to make your plane fly properly. So right now we have a pretty cool looking glider, and you could probably actually make this fly pretty well, but what we want to do right now is put an annular wing on it. Again, an annular wing is a circular wing that you don't see very common nowadays, but it has a lot of really cool flight characteristics and benefits. So let's go ahead and put this aside here, and we'll go ahead and take the two sides of our wing and peel the paper. You're going to notice here with the paper off, it's very easy to bend the wing. What I'd like you to do is to take your two fingers and your thumb and kind of space them out and just walk it down and put a gentle bend into your wing. Don't try to do too much too soon or you could crack it. If you do accidentally crack it, no worries at all. All you have to do is just put a piece of tape on both sides and continue with your build. One more time. And sometimes I like to kind of use the table as my friend. Even drag it on the edge. Almost there. There we go. Looking good. A little bit more on this side. There we go. That's one side, let's do the other. Now that we have both the shapes bent, if you haven't already, let's go ahead and clear out the two channels that we're going to need to tab our annular wing into. With both of our tabs done, we can now go ahead and just do a quick test fit here. And you're gonna notice the tabs will only go halfway through. That's because on the other side, it's gonna come up and meet it. So all we simply need to do is put it right halfway through, just like that. Once we're happy with that and it has a nice even shape, we can lift this up. I'm gonna put 4 beads of glue here. Press it right down into place again. There's one, and there's 2. And I'm just gonna hold this for about a minute here and let it fully dry. Same process on the bottom here. We're gonna be a little careful not to push this down and damage the top wing. Just gonna do a quick test fit. Always do a test fit before we glue anything down. Helps us remember the motion we gotta do to glue it, but also make sure everything looks good, and it does. Open this up one more time. 4 beads of glue. This one I'm going to put a little glue on the other side here so it holds the two sides together. You can always remove those strings later. There's one side. And there's side 2. I'm just gonna hold this up for about a minute and let it fully dry. At this point, our airframe is now done. Our next step here is to establish our center of gravity. Now the center of gravity is found between the very back edge of the opening of your wing and the very tip of the annular wing here. It's a range in between there that you can adjust to get the kind of flight characteristics you want. Now in our kit, we do include a couple nuts here that you can choose to slide in if you choose so. Or with this design, it's quite possible it's gonna fly just perfectly without any balanced weight at all. It all depends on how much hot glue and how much tape you used. Let's go ahead and take it out and put it for a test glide. All right, so we have the airframe all done now here. The next thing we're gonna do is establish our center of gravity. Now the center of gravity is gonna be the very back of the opening here to the very tip. It's gonna be arranged depending on how you want this plane to fly. Now depending on how much tape you use or how much glue you use, you may not even need the included nut to get it balanced at all. But I'm gonna go ahead and toss this back and forth with my friend Stefan here. We're gonna adjust the center of gravity and we're gonna have a lot of fun.
Sick, let's do it.
Ready?
That's perfect. That's nice. Where's the best place to just throw this from
I just kind of toss it from the nose like that, yeah. I like it.
I like how it goes to a certain spot and then it just chills there.
Oh, all right, so let's put this little nut here in the front. This is gonna actually cause it to have a little bit more nose down tendency. See how that goes. There it is.
Oh yeah, that was nice. That was nice.
Nice. All right, so when you toss the orbit here, when you're flying at radio controlled, you can actually toss it this way. For launching it as a free flight, I like to grab it up towards the nose like this and then throw it like a dart. It just flies so good.
It does.
Awesome. So as you guys can see, one of the really cool bets of an annular wing is it not only gives you lift, but it also gives you a lot of directional stability, and that's what makes this plane fly so nice and true, straightforward. Combine that with a little bit of heat roll on each side, you have an amazing slow fly that's really easy to fly. Let's go ahead and take this back into the studio. I'm gonna show you how to put some electronics in it and make it radio controlled. All right, so we had a lot of fun flying this as a free flight. Let's go ahead and show you now how to make it radio controlled. First thing we're gonna need to do, we're gonna need to get our EZ pack out. And we got our transmitter, our hardware bag, and our control board. Let's go ahead and unpack all these pieces here and identify them, and we'll put them on the airplane. So we have our main transmitter controller. We have our control board. We have our left and right motors. We have our battery. And we have our charger. Along with all this, we also include a couple extra props and also our prop removal tool. The first thing we want to do is let's go ahead and put our battery on charge because this is going to go together so quickly. The last thing we want is to wait for our battery to charge. To charge our battery, all we need to do is line up the tab so it slides in easily, press it into place, and then plug this into a USB charging port. Make sure that when you plug this in that you see your red light turned on. When the battery is fully charged, the light will go out. We're not going to need the lower housing for our control board, so let's go ahead and remove that now. Simply go ahead and take your fingernail, pop open the tab, and slide your control board directly out. We can move this and put this aside. Let's first grab our left motor. You're gonna know it's our left motor because it's gonna have a red connector, and also there's gonna be a little piece of tape here saying L. Now to figure out which side of your airplane is the left and right, we're gonna make sure the nose is pointing away from us, and now we're gonna hold it as if we're sitting inside the cockpit flying the airplane ourselves. At this point, the left side of the wing is the left, the right side of the wing is the right. So for the left side of the wing here, again, this is the left side. We're gonna flip this over 180 degrees, and I'm gonna put a piece of tape right here. All right, let's go ahead and set this in place here. Notice that we have the motor all the way back, right against here. I'm gonna press this down with my finger, and I'm gonna fold around to the other side and pull it tight. Gonna make a nice tight joint. The reason we tape these in place instead of gluing them is so you can swap the electronics from one plane to the other. Grab our other piece of tape. Right down, press it up against the foam, and then we'll fold it around. There we go. Let's do the same process now on the other side. And like I said before, you guys can choose to use 3/4 inch tape. For so many of our model builds, we use the 2-inch tape. I just like using it. Push that down in, grab the end, fold it around to the other side. It's really important to do it this way. This is gonna cut down on the harmonics and give you a very strong joint. All right, both of our motors are in place. The next step, we're gonna take the right lead, the white connector, we're gonna pass it right on through here so we can make our connection with the control board. We're now gonna take our control board, and with the lead pointing towards the nose, we're gonna pass the white connector through the center section here and just give it a little wiggle and it'll pop right on through. And while it's in our hand, we can go ahead and carefully make connection. Now it's really important to make sure that the holes are slightly off center on the connection, to line them up, not force them in, and just pop it into place. We're gonna take 2 small drops of glue, here and here. It's really easy to pop it loose later. And we're gonna fit the board right down in, and then press it into place. Hold this for about 30 seconds to a minute until it's fully dry. Small little scrap of tape is all you need to dress the wires. I'm just gonna let it kind of twist around here, tape it right up against the bottom. And I'm gonna do the same process now on the other side. Red connector to red, line up the pins. There we go. And I'm just gonna give a little coil. Hold it down with my thumb. A little scrap piece of tape is all you need to make it nice and neat. Before we place our battery in to establish the proper center of gravity, let's go ahead and pass our battery lead through the hole that we previously used for our nut to establish the right center of gravity, and we'll pull all the way through. Now that we have the electronics on our orbit, let's go ahead and install the batteries on our transmitter, and we'll fire it up. There we go. Then we're also going to install our battery here. I'm just going to slide this right on through, and this can slide forwards and backwards to give you the proper center of gravity. Now where your center of gravity is going to change your flight characteristics on the orbit, just like what we saw when we were flying it as a free flight. So go ahead and move the battery forward and backward until you get the proper center of gravity that you enjoyed most when you're flying the airplane as a free flight, and then you can make your connection. There we go. It only goes in one way. Let's go and check our center of gravity real quick. That looks pretty good. That looks like a really good starting point right there. And now we're gonna go ahead and turn this on. The first thing we wanna do is we wanna turn on our orbit. You're gonna see a rapid flashing red light. After that, we're gonna let that sit still on the table. We're gonna turn on our transmitter with the throttle all the way down. Once we turn the throttle all the way down, you're gonna see a slow flashing red light on your orbit. We're gonna go to full throttle. And when we close the throttle, both lights on the transmitter and also on our airplane are gonna go solid red. At this point, when we hold this in our hand and give it a little throttle, we should have both motors firing up. Now notice that when we actually give it a little bit of throttle and rock it back and forth, we should feel the motors resisting us and trying to make the plane go back to straight again. That's exactly what it does. At this point, we're ready to take it outside and put it in the air. One last thing before we take this outside and fly it is you have a button here called rates. Rates is going to give you low or high rates. If you have a wide open field and lots of space, you can use low rates, but what I'd strongly recommend is hitting the rates button one time and making that center red light flash like you see here. This is going to give you lots of control and also enable you to fly in smaller areas. We're going to start by test flying our airplane in higher rates. We can always move it to lower rates later. Let's go outside and take it for a flight. All right, so we have our center of gravity established here. We're in high rates. We're ready to fly this. It's a little bit windy out here, but I just don't want to wait. But I'd strongly encourage you, wait till the calmest day possible before you take this up for your first flight here. I'm going to go ahead and put this in the air and see how she does. Good, even in wind. Look at that. There we go. Friends, I want to thank you for being part of the Flight Test family. Thank you so much for taking the opportunity to learn through aviation. I really want to see what you guys learn from these 3 designs here, and also when you create your own. So be sure to share those experiences, share that journey, and we'll see you next time.